Hello everyone and welcome to my demonstration painting, and I'm continuing my series of work on Scottish Munros. And today I have a photograph. I've got quite a lot of dark ridges of this valley, another hidden valley, just angle, slightly different angle, what I was painting last week. I've got loads of shadows here, I've got loads of depths. Which I don't think the most successful photograph, but I've done a little sketch and planned some of the tones, how I can kind of break them down into more subtones. So if I were to pick up the white, almost black, and something in between, kind of giving myself a little plan of possible breakdown of darkness. So perhaps if there will be some, not pitch black, but extra darker tones, there might be in the smaller quantities and possibly not as solid as we see here. It's also an opportunity for us to learn how to not take as the photograph as it is, but being excited of the view you might have seen, or sketches you might have done from the view, or something you really enjoyed, and kind of capture the maybe the layout, maybe this is the colors, maybe it is just reminder of some of the details, but actually take it a little bit more further and develop it a bit more further. So I'm planning to increase perhaps my further distant mountains. I love those blues there, but it just feels like it's not enough. So if I would have been tiny bit higher, maybe I would have seen more of them. Maybe changing slightly the angle of the valley and the river, stretching it a little bit more towards diagonal. We might have that more diagonal entry to the composition, even more exciting, following by that lovely shadow, following the shadow on the tops here, and then a lovely V shape. Maybe I'll make this section slightly lighter. So I'm constantly thinking, constantly analyzing, as always. Right, I picked up a ochre background today, so the colors could be supported straight away as I'm painting. But I also want to introduce some more bolder colors as well. So let's see how it goes. Now on my palette, I've got some white, yellow, cadmium yellow, ochre, orange, crimson, violet, ultramarine, and I probably might need a little bit of turquoise, so I'll put some phthalo blue and emerald green, and a little bit of black. I'll just smudge it here so then you can see that's black. There we go. Right, so I'm going to start with using diluted violet. Violet is quite a good color choice for sketching on orange, red, ochre type of background. It becomes a bit more neutral. It becomes part of the environment. So as I already planned my composition on my sketch, I'm going to follow that design. So I've enlarged some of the kind of moved certain sections a little further. For example, this lovely shadow. Okay, right, just stretch it out. Okay, and using a runny violet helps me to stay fluent with my strokes. I'm extending the ridge here where we're standing just a little further, just to show a little bit more light. Okay. And perhaps that shadow will just go in to support that light. Okay. Just sketching with the violet and seeing the quality of darkness and lightness of the color. Quite like some of these pale strokes, quite like the different intensity strokes. It's just really exciting to see the type of line and the tone within that line. Okay, right, next let's find perhaps the warmer part of the ridge here before the blue peaks at the back. Let's find where that might be. Okay, somewhere here. Maybe tiny bit shallow, so then the blues will come out even more intensive and in height and in color. I'll just put it there roughly. I can tweak it after. And also I'm interested in finding the valley V. Okay, what type of angles, left and right side, going to be either more symmetrical or is one is a little bit more shallow? Perhaps this could be a little bit more shallow line. Maybe this one I can make slightly steeper. Okay, and that's where I can decide on the point of the ridge where the ridge is slowly started to go up. Let's have an approximate direction for it first. I really like that point here as well. Make it deliberately slightly even higher. Okay, it's quite nice, almost flat plateau walk-wise, and again a little climb, and again almost a plateau, little dips, and again a softer line, a little curve, and then it again goes up. So it gives us an opportunity to see more mountains at the back. Right, and I think by doing that line, I might change the position of this peak. Quite like some of the textures here. It gives me the reference point to the tops. There's some famous walks here around Glencoe. I'm making a decision to make these mountains slightly taller as well. My sketch is actually like a bit lower. Maybe I will go with my sketch because then, yes, then the blue mountains are not going to be clashing. Okay. So referring to my sketch and finalizing decisions. Down a bit. Yeah. Quite a few lines there. So let's keep it on the same height here deliberately, okay? And let's have the peaks there. And this is a little steeper angle here as well. Okay. Right, and then finding the heights within the painting, perhaps some of the high points will stay. I don't want to, it's kind of to be right above my warmer mountain. I don't want all the cool ones to be symmetrical, but perhaps there will be another taller point somewhere here. Maybe these ones could go a little lower. So it's kind of that dynamic. Okay, and perhaps something could be taller on this side, but maybe it will end up being lighter. We'll see the blues, but perhaps it will be slightly lighter. So I'm thinking of a rhythm, thinking of a variety, I'm thinking of spotting some of the repetitive shapes and perhaps changing them. Right. And now let's have a look at the lower parts here of the valley. So my slopes, maybe a tiny bit more left, sorry, right, with my let's find almost continuation of them. Shadows, continuations of the peaks. Okay, so I will go a little bit more steeper. Some will have a little bit more shallow angles, and then that steepness again increases. The shadow goes quite straight down as well. Yeah, let's have a look at the base of the valley. Find perhaps it's harder to see what happens there to the river, but we can see distinctive darker tones and some lighter tones, but it's kind of mingles in loads of light. So perhaps just simplifying it. Similar stretch of that zigzag. And then again, following the shadows, can find some reference point to the slopes, how the glacier been melting and dragging the stone and debris, creating all the shapes here. Okay, I think I've got a darker shadow of a mountain behind here. And this slope is in front of us, but both shadows will be clashing here. Perhaps this shadow will stay somewhere here. Again, using diluted violet, just nice to blend some of the basic shadows and opportunities to think of tone, think of, you can see I've got two very similar kind of sections here. So can I subdivide it maybe with a shadow? Can I break it down with maybe color later on? So then that stays different. Okay, I haven't decided what's going to happen here, but there's a bit of light left. Okay, now let's have a look a tiny bit more on this side. Quite like some nice shadows next to the river. It's quite a small stream beginning of the river. It's quite interesting to see those shadows coming up, but the rest of the shadows are quite high up. Again, let's just perhaps look for possible design of the silhouette. to make it slightly darker, and using the strokes also following the form will help us to see differences in terrain or how the shadows will develop. This will stay still darker. And I'm going to put all this as well darker. Just as a quick plan, not checking how much of the shadow we want to have. And if we can improvise and play with the shapes of the mountains, when we decide painting a city or narrow streets or other architectural buildings, the same principle and the same approach applies. We're looking for shadows, we're looking for overall tones, we're looking for depths. So it wouldn't be as much different painting any architectural elements or cityscapes. Okay, I quite like how the valley is developing here as well. Having a medium background, applying slightly darker tones, gives us that depth quite quickly. And then within the darks, yeah, where we've got a couple of layers of slightly thicker violets, the beauty of the runny acrylics allows us to have that layering, that almost oil painting transparency, which is really good. I'm quite happy that I've changed the sky positive kind of positive negative shape against the mountains, so it doesn't look too empty. I can still bring some clouds in. Perhaps I've got a little diagonal approach here as well. Okay, and anything else I might want to put on the path here. Now, excuse me. Let's put a little bit of texture. Oh, so it's just a small space here for path, more of a eroded area, and there's quite a sheer drop. So that the shadows on that side are really steep ridge. So this area is lit up only because just catching a little bit of extra sunlight. So to paint that ridge, can almost follow the shape and think of that partially round, partially just soft angles here. So my rock formations, my shadows will follow that direction. Again, perhaps I'll need to think of the rhythm. So my brush marks are not going to be the same. So far, they're a little bit repetitive. Maybe I need to cluster the darkness a bit more. Okay, maybe it will be a very small amount of light remaining. Okay, maybe I'll unite these shadows together. So it is easier to do it in tone first, before we bring the colors. Or at least consider options of how things that could be done. Quite like this slide, but do I want to? It just takes us a little bit away, maybe just partially covering it. Okay, maybe this one as well. So even if it's subtones, it's not overly dark, it's not huge details, but still allows me to find those silhouettes, those gaps of light and shadow. Okay. And if there are still not quite right, we can still continue developing it with the color. I think I'm happy with that now. Oops, it will just get slightly darker as I go higher here. Okay. That's quite a nice simplified tonal study of the Monroes. Right, so I've got my medium tones, I've got my darks. Let's have a look a little bit at the sky, and let's establish a little blue at the distance as well. So I'd like to paint the sky and the distant mountains perhaps as well. Now, another photograph, we can't quite see much of the blue. We actually did have some blue sky with some of the clouds. So it wasn't overly, had an overcast walk back, but on the way to this point, there were quite a lot of blue sky. But again, the camera not always just picks what we see. So I'm going to emphasize the sky slightly more, and I want to connect it to the blues. But before I paint the blue, I would like to start painting some of the shadows of my sky. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white with some ochre and violet, and a small dab of ultramarine, just to make it warm gray, but it is gently going towards the blue, not a fresh white. So I'm going to have to make up some of the clouds, as I don't have too much of them on the photo. So I'm going to paint partially shadow of my clouds here. A little bit too much blue, but I think that will give me a nice sub shadow, and perhaps something to offset my mountains here. Okay, so I might have something soft. It actually works really well with my ochres. I'm not going to leave it, unfortunately, like that, but for now, that's all good. And while I have this color, I think I might put it a little bit here in the valley. I think might be a good reference color for all the reflection in the water, or it might be a little bit of that light in the valley, something in there. Might just have a little bit of reference. Maybe it will disappear, but I think it might be exciting to see. And I want to have a look at my blues now. So if I'll go, I just wipe the ochre and violet off my brush. Go for a stronger ultramarine with some white and test it. Okay, perhaps a little too strong. And also perhaps if I were to use phthalo blue and have more ultramarine for the mountains, let's try that. See if that coolness will be better. So at the similar point and height, I might have a similar blue. And as I'm going a little bit lower, I can have some paler blue. Using a slightly larger brush allows me to paint quickly and also not overdwell on details. Okay, just making that change of light makes the sky straight away more sunny. Even my clouds are not light yet. Okay, and that's when I'm starting to add slightly more pale blue. Whereas in the sky, might have a hint of that lower cloud and light. So now if I go for more fresh white and just soften it, blend it within my current clouds, just gusts of wind. Using our brush, just a tiny bit diluting it and just playing with the strokes rather than putting them too precise. It becomes much more alive and realistic, and sometimes I pick up a smaller brush and I overwork it because you start being precious with your strokes. Okay, anything else paler here? Perhaps something going over here. That's quite nice. Okay, maybe this a little too round shape. Just make it slightly more obscure. I'm gonna let the colors dry. I can see some of them are settling darker than how they appeared earlier on. So I might need to touch some once they're totally dry. Let's see what that texture. Okay, I think there will be some more stronger whites. But it gives us brooding clouds. Is it going to be a storm? Is it the sun's going to come out and Everything will become more cheerful. It's that opportunity of change, fleeting moment of that weather. Okay, I think I might just leave it at that for a moment. And let's have a look at the mountains. We'll straight away start with ultramarine and of course a little bit of white. And if I pick up the darker color first, I want to go bold immediately to offset the shadow on the mountains against the sky. Perhaps even darker version or a little bit more violet in my ultramarine will be even better. And let's have a game of lost and found shapes. Just a little bit of blocking here and then picking up some more white. Okay, that's too light. Okay, perhaps a little too dark. Let's just block that part of the area. So if I paint my mountains dark next to the sky, it looks like they are the closest mountains to us from the distant belt of mountains, and we can't see anything behind. The moment we start painting something lighter, okay, just trying to find the right darkness here. Okay, it will take us much further back and will give us further distance. And again, I prefer having a larger brush so when it smudges, we have much more natural feel. Okay. Plant my peaks at the middle ground, maybe paint a little bit more than I need. So the blue is staying consistent. Just blocking first. And I can come back to medium darknesses and now a range of colors. I also would like to bring a little ochre over my blues. I quite like this combination of colors, but the paint will need to be drier for me to actually maybe a little bit damp, have a small emphasis on some of the light. Okay, anything in between. Maybe something darker, the ultramarine. even come closer. Okay, that's that peak. Get a little dull shape. Let it dry and come back. I've got these ones very dark, so maybe somewhere here close. I need to have some darkness so then my mountain in front could have more strength through its warmth. Okay. Again, suggestion of shadows, but soft because it's far in a distance. Suggestion of sharpness, suggestion of softness, a little bit of both. Not telling the full story. I can still see a little more ochre remaining kind of in between some of the gaps. Okay. Sort of almost, if there's a cloud coming over. Casting a shadow. It's dry. And see how that shape of blue stands up against that. Shadows close. Again, it's a little bit of a peak with the minor shadow. I'm thinking of a cloud creating a bit too much texture here. Sometimes we end up doing the same mistakes or the same patterns were already fixed. If I catch myself doing it again and again, I just stop and deviate to work elsewhere, and then to come back with fresh eyes looking at it. But I think that's okay. Right, let's it be for a moment. Right, any other cooler tones I can use on the painting? I think some of these shadows could be really nice and deep. If I use some violet with ultramarine. Perhaps earlier on, if I just dilute it, there's a little bit of white still there. If I dilute it and partially dilute it, so I can still see a small amount of brown underneath, or a little bit of that texture. So then my mountain could have sharpness, or even a tiny hint of black with a violet, which could give that extra depth. And then again, just diluting it. We never want to paint a shadow as a solid block of dark. We want to see some light within our shadow here. We want to see some air through it. Maybe that's the better explanation. So I've got a little bit more air. It's not just solid pitch black corner. Okay, and again, somewhere here might work into black and blue, black and violet, more like an indigo with a little extra warmth. Okay, then that's good start. Perhaps even connecting with my shadows here. Not too sure about these arms stretching out. Let's just focus on the color first. Little silhouette. And the mountains here as well. And let's have a look at that shadow. I'll actually take this one off. Okay. Immediately I want something else coming across a little bit opaque, a tiny bit of white, then it opaque white, maybe a hint of ochre, makes it a little bit more golden, but maybe not quite what we want, but just that a runny paint and solid opaque color. Sometimes it works really exciting. I'm not too sure here yet. It's too light. Yeah, that's immediately better because the color is warm underneath, color is dark underneath. Just wanted to explore a little bit of light. Didn't move too well, that's okay. Let's bring maybe that warmth from orange, red, and a little extra white. Dab of violet. Something wants a bit more here, close to my violets, but not as close to ochre. To bring more coolness to the mountains as well. Last week I had quite a lot of oranges and reds, which worked really well, but do want to experiment with the range of color. Do want to have different studies. Okay, this red looks a bit more exciting than some of the wet violet strokes. Okay, something's runny and soft. want to connect this ridge with the valley ridge. Maybe put in a little extra light. Okay, that's perhaps too steep. And to a flatter shape to build on. Okay. So I'm almost planning the under color shape there. Okay, a little bit too soft than I wanted, but let's keep it there for the moment. Right, and let's start looking at the mountains at the back, and that warmth and left-hand side of the valley. Right, I want to preserve some of this warmth and light. So when I'm adding more color to the back, maybe it will have a connection to it. So if I were to use some ultramarine and some orange, will start giving me something in between green and gray, depends how much of the orange I'll use, or blue. Let's have a look. Of the blue with some white, so we see more color. Okay, that's too light. Okay, that will clash with my distant mountains, so perhaps more violet and pink to shift it the opposite direction. Okay. And just a tiny bit lighter. Okay, a bit too light again. Just mixing it in place to have that kind of purple gray, bordering with a little bit of green. Can I see some of similar color as a subtone? Okay, I think that's just reflecting. With a little more of that orange and white. Top, yeah, it's too yellowish. I want a little bit more light. Maybe a little too high. Orange, red. Okay. I think that green, quite like it there, but I can't find a connection to it. Maybe it's, we'll have to go on the top, not underneath. Sometimes it's really good that acrylics is staying damp. Sometimes it's good when it dries and we can work with drier layers without spoiling what's underneath. Soften it a lot. I've got two similar strokes of the shadows, but I think I can work with that when it dries. Okay, again, for now, it's a nice distance and space. I'll regain the edge here, quite like we see the water a bit better. Perhaps too much of, looks like a distant small lake, but we can shrink that. I put in slightly darker banks and narrowing the shape out. And I wanted to have the paler green using oak and emerald green. A little bit of extra white on that hint of sunshine. On the slopes. Then when this area dries, maybe I'll bring some more of that sunshine as well. And a little extra green. Any shadows with some green on the opposite side. So for the shadows, I mix green and violet. It's kind of earthy, quite earthy type of green. Okay, tiny bit more darkness again. Here we have extra light. Quite alpine pastures, but yeah, it's a nice green, but maybe in the wrong place. Slightly more deeper. Even this one's still too pale. More ground, we can bring that one over and even more light with some more so shadow could be interrupted a little higher. So we've got some light coming in. Okay, that's still a bit damp. Maybe a little hint of green. Let's see how that dries. And let's come back to shadow. Direct violet, violet with some red. This could be some hints of heather. It's a nice color combination here. And again, some of that green will come back. The best color here, or tone. Oh, that's nice. And a little more cooler tone at the back. Just want to keep the brush with the similar colors, so I'll leave it there. Some more coolness and height. The front of the valley. Here in the shadow. And then it could meet its opponent here. Perhaps a bit too drastic. Now, the connection is there. And I can soften that blues. Anytime I'll see I'm creating a line. So it's not quite a line here, it's a bit more of a line here, but it's gone to a wider shape, narrow shape, a shape developed and expanded, so it's no longer a line again. Okay, that's fine, more definition. Couple of corners. I think it's all dry light as well. Okay, and perhaps also the bank or the river could sharpen Not too much. So I'm using cool corner of the palette, that warmer greens. Well, the greens are not warm, but in my case, they have loads of browns and oranges in them. So they are warmer here. I think that's all dry, dark as well. Just a contrasting stroke, which reflects. So I was doing the banks of the river and I got carried away. Doing slightly cooler contrast and darker contrast. Just shows the erosion close to the water. Okay, just not quite dark enough. I can wipe this darkness, which I put a little too much, or I can place a color over. The reason I'm thinking of placing it rather than wiping might give me a fresher stroke. Okay, I wanted some darkness there as a little texture. Okay, so the greens is slowly developing here now in the valley. Okay, now you can see I've got almost a line of a shape, a line of a shape, a line of a shape, a line of a shape. So can I bring some further and dilute the edges so they're no longer aligned, but spreading. So it doesn't mean that we're not gonna make those shapes happen, those lines in appearance. It's what do we do with them when they happen. Okay, maybe I should have been a little bit more patient and let the previous colors dry. Too wet. Mm. Continue painting it. Okay, there is some hints of greens now cropping in here. Okay, let's focus on some other shapes. Let's look at some light close to me and some shadows close to me as well. Right, I need some more white, and I'm going to get that path, that ridge, a little stronger. I'll use some ochre, kind of maybe go for similar even color. Maybe ochre and a little bit of orange. I used for my background a small amount of violets. If I'll go with fresher orange here, orangey ochre. Okay, that's a little too light. Maybe a tiny dab of violet. Okay. Even this darker tone looks quite strong and dark here on my palette against the shadows. It looks much more pleasant, that overly bold yellow. So just parts of rocks, parts of lit up grass, dry edge of the grass. So I could put a little bit of light on top. This is a better start. Color in the back. Also, this color at the front. Strokes are too large. They start creating big chunks of rocks or shapes. Okay. Did like that contour of my shadow. Okay, maybe enough light. Let's have a look at some darks here. Let's just go directly with violet. See how warmer violet with some red. Okay, on its own, it's a bit too flat, but if we add some ultramarine to that. Let it dry. It's much too good. I think I need more clear shapes. But I'll let this area dry and come back when this one looks much better. Got nice contrast. Let's again work into some light. It's part of the valley. This light will settle differently and not going to be a jumpy shape. So I might leave it and find another shape. Maybe using some more diluted paint so it's will integrate differently as it dries. Almost dry brushing here. Okay, and a little more light now here. This is not working. So I can start increasing. Okay. And perhaps a little more cautious with drying the previous layer. Just want to keep on going. And the previous layer doesn't allow me to smudge. Mhm. Small brush there, because the zigzags of the river. The valley is developing. Want to see a little more flatness of it. And some grasses or dry vegetation, just a little over. I think I'm going to come back to lightly darker ridge to show we are high up. It's not immediate connection. Right. I think the valley is working now. Now I need to connect my warm mountain with it as well, and perhaps bring a little bit of blue on the front so I can make connections here by putting a little more shadows. Looking. A little more blue. The stronger ultramarine, but against my shadows, it will come light against other tones. It's still a little too light. Otherwise, it looks like it's water and it's reflecting sky. So tiny darker. which in a way it is picking up some of the coolness. But it needs to be a darker coolness. Something maybe a rock formation, maybe a bit more grayish. Almost like tumbling stones. Between the two higher shapes. Dark. Right on the river to separate it from the edges. Okay, we've got a bank, we have some light. It's maybe too much white, but at least tone wise it's working. Probably not going to see any white there. Sometimes it glistens. I'm bringing the blue almost in a line, but then I'm breaking it down, softening it out, so it becomes a shape, it becomes integrated. Coolnesses. Breaks the volume of green and light into balance. Still want to add some more paler blue. Into it, the river as it's drying. A bit darker, the violet, bit of red, bit of green, just something at a darker version. It's too dark, just looks too precise. Probably that darkness would have been good when I was painting, when the area was wet. Darker banks go both sides. They just vary. Where the erosion, sorry, where the erosion happens. On the left a bit more, on the right a bit more. Lost and found. Hope it's gonna dry similar to what's happening there at the moment. Okay, that sharpening is starting to happen now on the river. Sharper definition close to me. Texture, which disappears into shadows and distant terrain. Okay. And a little bit of similar shadows just underneath where that depth. It is good to, if you're painting and you enjoy listening to some audiobooks, to put something within the Scottish history or the mountain explorations, the feel of the adventure and outdoors. Some sort of steps. You can have a feel of the wind or just a recent calmness. Okay, a little highlights, and I think I can stop. So I need to wash my brush. And have little touches of that light emphasized. White and yellow, white and ochre, dab of orange. Some light at the peaks. You can preserve partially the sharp contour of the color and then smudge part of the stroke. Bring a little sharpness and a little softness. I'm not looking at the photograph. I'm now just looking at my painting. finding that extra depth. Okay, lovely light for the green. Okay, just small amounts, not overworking it now. Now at the same time. With some explosive light on the side. Maybe a little peak. Just created a gap. Of the light. And that's what I was trying to do, something here. And a little more here at the top as well. And now small amounts of that light will be welcome. Definition here. This is it's too much as well. The shadows looks better. And so is the stronger light here as well. I'll just put a couple of more. Marks, and I think that will be enough. Of yellowish hints, just off yellow, off ultramarine. It's kind of a little golden, not white, but a little glistening. Connection, and I just soften those shapes. Things going on, but not too invasive. That's okay, that's okay. This precise corner here as well. Let's look at that. So I don't think I need to add anything to my clouds. I think that's looking quite good. I quite like that connection of that orange with my browns and oranges. Glad I brought more light into the valley. I flattened the valley a little bit more because I changed the direction of the river, but I'm quite happy with that as well. The path is close to us, but it's not overly taken, kind of that ridge. Doesn't take too much attention. It's still, the attention is staying at the back. Could put a little more light further the distance, but I think both options probably will work. So I'll leave it as it is for a couple of days and then look back and perhaps make final amendments or make a decision if it's ready. So thank you very much for being with me tonight. I hope you learned a couple of things, and if you want to give it a go, maybe do a section, maybe practice some of the stretches, maybe practice some of them blending with a sponge, and let me know if any specific areas you enjoyed more than others. And I look forward to see you soon. Thank you.